Good evening, friends. In the earlier session, we discussed about broadly what is active voice and what is passive voice. We also discussed about how to identify subject in a sentence. Every sentence should have a subject. Subject is mandatory, but object is not mandatory. In case of intransitive verbs, we don't have objects. In case of transitive verbs only, we have objects. Right. Active voice is the voice where the subject is actively doing some work, whereas passive voice, subject is not doing the work. Subject is actually receiving the action of the verb. In active voice, subject, whatever subject means, the main discussion or the main thing of the sentence, what we are discussing about in the sentence, that is the subject. In active voice, the subject acts, and in passive voice, the subject doesn't act. Rather, is the subject is passive and receives the action. This is what we have discussed. Right. Let us just summarize. A verb is in the active voice when its form shows that the person or thing denoted by the subject does something. The subject does something. In other words, it is the doer of the action because it prefers action. It is coming from the word act, the root word act, which signifies action, preferring action to contemplation, that is active voice. Whereas in passive voice, something is done to the person or thing denoted by the subject. Right, subject receives it. The passive voice is so called because the person or thing denoted by that subject is not active but passive. It actually receives the action. One more thing, whatever, when we change one sentence from active voice to passive voice, the object in active voice becomes subject in passive voice. For example, Sita loves Savitri. Savitri is object here, it becomes subject here. Savitri is loved by Sita. The mason is building the wall. The wall is the object here, and the wall will become subject in passive voice. Right? The wall is being built by the mason. That is what this is another point that which we have discussed. Active voice. Act. What is active? Active means involved in something, making a determined effort and not leaving it to chance. Right. Whereas passive, the general meaning of these two words. Right. What is passive? Passive means accepting whatever that is happening without trying to change anything or opposing anything. That is passive. That is passive. Right. And another important thing, when the verb is changed from active to passive, object of the transitive verb in the active voice becomes subject of the verb in the passive voice. And what does this mean? For passive voice, we definitely need an object in the active voice. To convert a sentence from active voice to passive voice, we need an object in the active voice. Right. Otherwise, because this object has to become subject here, if there is no object here, there is no way we can convert this sentence into passive voice sentence. Right. To convert an active voice sentence into a passive voice sentence, we need an object in the active voice. What does that mean? That means the verbs in active voice should be transitive verbs. If these are intransitive verbs, they will not have objects. If they don't have objects, because the object will become subject in passive voice, we cannot convert that into passive voice. Right? Because in every sentence, subject is mandatory. You can skip object, but subject is mandatory. So, what does that mean? Only transitive verbs can be used in the passive voice because intransitive verb has no object in the active voice sentence. Now, another important thing, we have these two voices, but why do we use or when do we use passive voice? It is not just sufficient to understand whether the statement is given active voice is in active voice or passive voice or how to convert one sentence from active voice to passive voice. What is also important is when to use passive voice. In general, we mostly use active voices only. Most of the statements that we have seen in our earlier sessions, all of them are active voice statements only. We generally use active voice because it is more direct and it is simpler. It follows subject, verb, object pattern. Right. But when do we need passive voice? There are certain guidelines. In certain cases, we prefer passive voice. What are those? Let's look at them. When it is not necessary to mention the doer of the action. The doer of the action is not necessary to be mentioned. The rubbish hasn't been collected by whoever is the one who collects. It doesn't matter. It is not necessary. What is important here is rubbish hasn't been collected. Who is the one who collects? That is not important. So that's why we don't need to mention in this kind of statements, because we don't need to mention the doer. That's why. And what is more important? This action is more important. That's why we put it in passive voice. The streets are swept every day by whichever sweeper or whichever person. That person is not important. That person, we don't need to mention that person. The person is not important. Rather, the action is more important, right? That's why we use passive voice. Your hand will be scanned. By whom? We don't know, right? Whoever is the nurse or whoever is the person that scans your hand, it doesn't matter, right? What is more important is your hand will be scanned. The action is more important. It is not necessary to mention the doer of the action. Then we use passive voice. Or in another case where we don't know the doer or we have forgotten who is the doer or who did the action. The minister was murdered. In this case, either we don't know who did the murder or we don't remember. My car has been moved. I don't know who has moved my car. Right. In this case, I use passive voice. What is more important for me is my car has been moved. Who moved is not so important, but my car. This is more important. And I don't even know also who moved my car. So I use passive voice here. Right. Like we discussed, the interest is more in the action. We are more interested in the action than the person who does it. Right. Like say for example, even in this case also, your hand will be scanned. Here we are more interested in the action rather than who does it. A new public library is being built. We are more interested in public library being built. We are not interested in who is the mason or who is constructing it, who is the laborer, that and all. We are not so worried. We are more interested in the action. The house next door has been bought. Who bought it is not so important. Just that the house has been sold is more important. Right. In those cases, we use passive voice. In other for other psychological reasons, we use passive voice because sometimes the speaker doesn't want to show responsibility or put responsibility on someone. If you make it, if you make the statement in active voice, that means you are clearly specifying who is the subject. That means who is the doer. In some cases, it is better if you don't tell who exactly is the doer. Let us take this example. Employer. The organization is saying overtime rates are being reduced. What does it mean? Employees will get paid less for the same work. If they are working, let's say, 2 hours more, because the rates are getting reduced, they will be paid less than earlier. Right? Obviously, this is not a convenient statement or not a happy statement to make. Right? The employees will not like this. The decision probably would have been taken by the CEO. But but they will not mention, the employer will not say the CEO has reduced the overtime rates. Because in that case, it looks like the responsibility belongs to the CEO. Right. Rather, the employer would say in a passive voice because they don't want to expose the CEO. In these kind of statements, where it is uncomfortable to put it in active voice, we use passive voice. Right. And you will see lot of statements in passive voice made by the government officers, government officials also, where they don't want to clearly say the or clearly declare who is the person responsible. Right. For example, in another case, this letter has been opened, right? This person knows who opened the letter, but he doesn't want to blame that person, right? Instead of saying you have opened this letter, this person is trying to be little mild in his statement. He actually knows who opened the letter, but he doesn't want to directly say or directly confront the person who opened the letter. So he is toning down, or he is putting the statement in a milder way, which is the passive way. The letter has been opened, right? Or in this statement, manager is saying to employee that the work should be finished by 2 p.m. rather than saying you finish the work by 2 p.m. because it sounds little mild. The passive sounds little mild, and active voice sounds little aggressive, right? If the manager says you finish the work by 2 p.m., it sounds very aggressive. Rather, he tells it the other way, the work should be finished by 2 p.m. Right? Both statements are addressed to the employee only, but this one is a milder version, is more agreeable version. Right? For these cases also, we use passive voice. Let us look at some exercises and just identify whether it is active or passive. The verb is in active voice or passive voice. Right? So, and we are not so worried about converting active to passive. For that, we need to understand little bit about tenses. We need to understand a little bit about tenses. Then we'll be able to convert sentences, a given sentence from active voice to passive voice. Once we complete our sessions on tenses of the verbs, then we will come back again to this conversion part. How to convert a given sentence from active to passive or passive to active. For now, we'll just understand whether a given sentence is an active voice or passive voice in this session. Right. The cat killed the mouse. The statement is about the cat. Right. The cat actively did something. The cat did the action of killing the mouse. So this is an active voice. We compelled the enemy to surrender. The sentence is about we. And we actually did something. We did the action. We compelled the enemy. That's why this is an active voice. The boy was bitten by a dog. Right. The sentence is about the boy. Please remember, most of the sentences, subject comes first. Right. And the subject is the one about whom the discussion is about. The sentence is about. Right. Generally, subject is in the beginning only. The boy was bitten by a dog. The sentence is about the boy. But the boy actively did not do anything. Rather, it is the dog who did the action and the boy received the action. Right, that's why this is in passive voice. The thief was caught. The sentence is about the thief. He was caught by someone. We are not bothered about who caught. Rather, what is more important is the thief was caught. Right, the sentence is about the thief. Thief is the subject. But he did not do anything. He was caught by someone. That someone has done the action. The thief has received the action. That's why this is in passive voice. The boy made a kite. Here, the discussion is about the boy. The subject is the boy. He made a kite. That means he actively did the action. That's why this is an active form. The ship was burnt. The sentence is about ship. Who burnt it is not important here. Right. Rather, what is more important is the ship was burnt. But the ship actively did not do any action. The action was done by someone or something, and the ship received the action. That's why this is in passive voice. The young man made a disturbance at the meeting. The sentence is about the young man. He did something. What he did? He made a disturbance at the meeting. He actively did. That's why this is active voice. The subject did the action. The captive was bound to a tree. The sentence is about the captive. He was bound to a tree by someone. Someone did the action. Okay, the captive did not do the action. The captive received the action. But the sentence is about the captive. Captive is the subject. Subject received the action. That's why this is passive voice. The bird was killed by a cruel boy. The sentence is about the bird. Bird is the subject. It received the action. It did not do anything. It was killed. The cruel boy did the action and it received the action. That's why this is in passive voice. The sudden noise frightened the horse. The sudden noise. The sentence is about the sudden noise, which is the subject. This noise actively did something. It frightened the horse. The horse received it. But here the subject only did the action. That's why this is an active voice. He is loved by all. The sentence is about he. He is the subject. But he is not doing any action. Rather, all are doing this action. People are doing this action of loving him. That's why he is receiving the action. The subject is receiving the action. That's why this is in passive voice. The exhibition was opened by the governor. The sentence is about the exhibition. The subject is the exhibition. But the exhibition did not do anything. Rather, the governor did the action. Exhibition received the action. That's why this is in passive voice. I see a dark cloud. The sentence is about I. I did the action of seeing a dark cloud. So this is in active voice. His command was promptly obeyed by someone. Let's say the sentence is about his command, but someone obeyed the command. Command did not do any action. Command received the action by someone. Right? Whenever you see by, generally that is in passive voice. This command was promptly obeyed by someone. Right? This is in passive voice. Some of the cargo has been damaged by the seawater. The sentence is about the cargo. Cargo has been damaged, had been damaged. But the cargo did not do any action. The seawater did the action. Seawater did the action. That's why this is in passive voice. The cargo received the action done by the seawater. Money will be earned by him. Money is the subject here, but it is not doing any action. He is doing this action. He is doing the action of earning money. Money is receiving the action. That's why this is in passive voice. The dog chased the sheep. The sentence is about the dog. The dog is the subject. It is doing the action of chasing. That's why this is in active voice. The letter was posted last night by someone. Let's say this letter. This letter is the subject of the statement. The statement is about this letter, but it was posted by someone. The action was done by someone. The letter received the action. The letter did not actively do any action. That's why this is a passive voice. The field is plowed again by someone. Right. The sentence is about the field. It is plowed. It is not doing any action. It is receiving the action. Someone, the plowed by someone, that someone did the action. Right. That's why this is in passive voice. The dog was teased by the boy. The dog was teased. The sentence is about the dog. The dog is the subject. It was teased by the boy. The boy did the action. Dog received the action. That's why this is in passive voice. The cat drank all the milk. The cat is the subject. The sentence is about the cat. It actively did this action. It did the action. It drank all the milk. The subject did the action. That's why this is in active voice. A stone struck me on the head. The sentence is about a stone. The subject is a stone. The stone struck me. Stone did the action. I received the action. That's why this is an active voice. The old gentleman takes medicine. The subject is about, the sentence is about this gentleman, this old gentleman. Right. And he took the action. That's why this is an active voice. The money was lost by someone. The money did not do anything. It was lost by someone. By someone, right? The money, but the sentence is about the money. The money is the subject and it did not do any action. It received the action. That's why this is in passive voice. Wherever you see by something, by someone, it is in passive voice only. The letter has just been posted again by someone. The sentence is about the letter. Who posted is not important. Rather, the letter has been posted is more important. Right. But the letter did not do any action. It received the action done by someone. That's why this is in passive voice. Hope you understood how to identify whether a given sentence is in active voice or passive voice, right? By looking at the subject and looking at the action, whether the subject is receiving the action or doing the action. Hope you have also understood when to use passive voice. This is very important, right? To choose whether to write in active voice or passive voice. To be in diplomatic, to be little diplomatic in some of your statements, it is very important. Right. Now we learnt about this, how to convert a sentence from active to passive. This we will learn again after we cover little bit of tenses. Once we understand tenses, different types of tenses, then we'll come back again and pick this active to passive or passive to active conversion. Hope you understood this. Any doubts, please comment below this video and we'll pick this up again. Thank you guys. All the best. Bye bye.